The following is a special presentation of the Minty Organization for the Performing Arts.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Front Row Conversations. Well, you heard the news last Monday that we are indeed going full force with a 10th anniversary celebration in August the 8th to be exact, at the St. George Theater. And we're looking forward to putting together an anniversary show for the ages. So if you would like to participate in one of our reunion numbers, either visit us online at minties.org or send us an email at mintyawards@minties.org. It's mintyawards@minties.org. And now for tonight's guest, I'm very happy to welcome the first Minty Award winner for Outstanding Leading Actor. We haven't been able to get rid of him since. I say that in jest. He's been a wonderful help, a dear friend to the Minties, and one of the great talents from Monsignor Farrell's class of 2012. Mr. James McKeon joins us this evening. James, always good to see you, my friend.
An absolute pleasure, as always, Mr. Pinto. Not a pleasure to hear that it's been 10 years, but a pleasure to be back to talk about it.
And boy, oh boy, and we'll see a clip in just a little bit. What did we look like 10 years ago is something else.
Let's see. You can add on about like 5 pounds of hair and then take away about 60 pounds of other stuff. So give or
let's
take.
Go back to that little high school James and where it all started out for you. We actually had a few experiences together doing theater pre-Minties. So what gave you the theater bug and how did you get involved?
So the theater bug came from, I guess, just growing up. I always loved singing ever since I was little. A good friend of yours and a good friend of mine, the fabulous Mr. Frank Busso, who would go to Star of the Sea in St. Clair's when play the accordion.
Legendary.
The legend of the Staten Island music community, and then for obviously St. Clair's and Star of the Sea. He would not chastise me during practice, but he would always kind of say, like, you're singing as you're playing and it's interfering with your playing. And I said, well, I really like singing. So I got involved in the St. Clair's Musical Theater back in 2006 doing Seussical the Musical. And then that just branched out into doing their shows for a couple of years. I met Andrew Monteleone when he came and saw Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. I believe that was 2008 before I had gone to Farrell. And then I've been stuck with Monty ever since that meeting. So that led us into obviously doing high school shows and et cetera from there on. So
what was the first high school show you did?
So the first high school show we did was in March of 2009. We did The Wiz, which was a very, very fun experience. I was at that point, I was probably about less than 5 feet tall during December auditions. That was when I met Tanya Glassman for the first time. I was number one because I was so excited, first freshman to show up at the the audition. And I was cast as the only male high school munchkin in Farrell's The Wiz, which made sense at the time because I was very, very short. And then I think I did between December and March, I had about half the growth spurt I would have. And then you literally saw it was all the kids from the Actors Workshop who were the munchkins, like maybe about here. And then there was me who was like a half foot taller than the rest of them. But that was a lot of fun. That's where I obviously met Tanya. I worked with Monty for the first time, and then a lot of the people that I would go on to do the shows, not only at Farrell the next 3 years, but across the different schools for the next 3.
But hey, you were a munchkin alongside a Broadway star, so that has to be something to credit.
With the benefit of hindsight, absolutely.
So that is the spring of your freshman year. That fall, we actually have our first interaction up on the hill at Notre Dame Academy. Mm-hmm. That great barnyard musical, Babes in Arms. Absolutely.
What a show.
And like you said, so Tanya was directing at Notre Dame. I was her assistant director. I remember the part you played. Do you remember the name of the character?
Oh, I don't remember. I knew it for so long. I don't remember the name of the character. He had a name. It was my first named character in a high school show.
I want to say, I'm maybe pulling this out of the air. Steve Edwards, is that?
Steve Edwards.
Right?
Definitely Edwards. It was definitely something Edwards, probably Steve Edwards. He's like, because obviously you want to, as a high schooler, you want to inflate like every role you have. So it's like, I'm not on stage for all this stuff, but he's so important to the plot. Like, he's got great plot relevance. Because I think he comes in and like funds the show at the end. I don't know. I haven't paid attention to it
Since 2009. I love the music, but it's an awful, awful book.
It's you had just great dialogue scenes. But you're right. No, like tremendous music in that show.
But we did have a lot of fun. And then Tanya and I, Tanya was, as you mentioned, choreographer at Farrell. And I got my first taste of the Farrell players that spring, where we did a show that is near and dear to my heart and yours, Anything Goes, at Farrell, which I forget. I don't know. I feel like I had a lot of titles with Monty for that show. Rehearsal pianist, assistant director, assistant music director, whatever it was. I had such a fantastic time with the Farrell players. And I'll say to you now, that really is what helped lead to the creation of the Minties, because yes, I had done the shows at sea when I was there for 4 years, doing 2 shows at Notre Dame with Tanya, and then Anything Goes at Farrell. I saw what a great community there is out there in these high schools, and just what love, especially the Farrell kids, had for their show. But we'll get to that later. Tell us about Anything Goes.
Anything Goes, again, you said it very aptly, near and dear to my heart. That was my first, obviously a named character, but that was my first leading role on a high school stage playing Evelyn Oakley. Just such a, that was such a coming out of my shell moment during like rehearsals for that, because he's such a goofy and dumb character. And I would go on to play many, many, many more goofy and dumb characters with great thrill and enjoyment. But it's high school. So I remember being at rehearsal and, not wanting to look dumb and goofy in front of like, the other people from other schools that were there, the girls. And I remember like Monty very poignantly said to me, like, when you step into a rehearsal, especially for a role like this, you need to leave your shame at the door. You need to step in and be open and be available to do what the role is asking of you. And from that moment on, it was like, okay, if I have to do this, I'm going to do this so dumb that it's going to be funny and awesome. So I think that's really what I've tried to do with every role since then. Just do it really dumb, but make it funny and awesome.
And, Tor had mentioned it when she was talking about Drowsy Chaperone. And I said my, initiation into the Farrell players was seeing the boat be painted the day of opening night, because I think that is also a great Farrell players tradition.
Oh, when the set finally comes together to 100% completion, I think like by closing night. Yeah. I mean, the best memory of the boat in Anything Goes was when the stage crew took it over as pirates, unbeknownst to the cast members, after I think like the Saturday show, which was, or maybe like the Friday show, I forget. But literally, the stage crew just came out as pirates and took over the SS America.
So that closes out now memorably your sophomore year, and now going into junior year, it's the fall of 2012, and it was the birth of the Minty Awards, and you were part of the very first Minty show over at St. John Villa, and that was Bye Bye Birdie.
Yes, I had obviously from working with Tanya prior. She had been obviously choreographing Farrell my first 2 years, and I had done Notre Dame show, Babes in Arms, with her. She had reached out to me. I think you and her had reached out to me at some point over the summer to say, "Hi, Tanya's now doing the show over at St. John Villa. We're going to be doing Bye Bye Birdie. I'd love for you to come over and audition." And I remember, I've always made no qualms about the fact that as much as I've done theater and been involved in theater, I know next to nothing about theater outside the realm of what I've seen and what I've done. So I'd never heard of Bye Bye Birdie. And I remember I said to my dad, like, "Oh, Tanya's doing Bye Bye Birdie over at Villa. Like, she wants me to come audition." And my dad like lights up and he's like, "Oh my God, Dick Van Dyke was in the movie. You have to go do it." I was like, okay, I guess I'll go do it. But that introduced me, specifically doing the shows at St. John Villa, introduced me to probably about, outside of my Farrell friends, probably like 70% of the people that I still hang out and talk to now. So aside from the great theater memories, awesome experience. And especially being in I think Notre Dame calls it the cottage, Villa calls it the green room, that like the room we would rehearse in, hearing for the first time these whispers of Mike Pinto's putting together this like award show thing that we're going to do at the end of the year for the Catholic High School Theater, and thinking like, oh wow, that sounds pretty cool. Like, what's it going to be called? And then learning the name and thinking that was just as awesome.
Well, thank you for that. So let's see, you do Bye Bye Birdie. That was in November. And let me just pause. Like you said, in these first 3 years of the Minties, 11 through 13, there was just a combustion of talent in these schools, and also, like you said, of love and friendship, which grew. That most of the alumni we've spoken to are from those core years, and I would say that they are all still friends with each other and love seeing each other. And I hope many of them come back in August, because that's what this current generation, still same generation, but these current theater high school students need to see that it's not just about the memories on the stage, it's what happens after that. So after Bye Bye Birdie, they announced a Farrell show, and your junior year show over there is Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. So tell us about your experience with that.
So Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, kind of like, and in terms of the shows that I had experienced up to that point, like an oddball in terms of like a modern musical, or like somewhat modern at the time, being done over at Farrell. That was my first foray into a leading role in a show, co-leading it with James Boland, as just the two con artists. And that's like, that show really set the tone for what would be like my go-to bread and butter in terms of like what I love to do in a show. Like those just kind of characters, again, like building off of the earnest dumbness of Evelyn from the year prior, and just like the really stupid, just slapstick stuff that we did in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. That was like just such a awesome experience. I mean, it was I like, even just thinking back to like the rehearsal process, which rehearsal process is always hectic at the time, but like looking back and just doing those numbers, like the whole Ruprecht number with this all the things we weren't allowed to say on the Farrell stage. Literally, like I think I was the most censored person ever in terms of that show, because like my character specifically had so many things that we were not allowed to say. Like Monsignor Whalen was just like, no. But like it was just so much fun. And again, like like the talent in that show, you had like Phil Colgan, you had James Boland, Angela Sclafani. Like you had Ryan Cobb dancing around. Even like you look at those guys, like Phil and Ryan were obviously from a big dancing background, but they had, with the partnership with the choreographer, they had like the other guys moving in terms of those numbers. And that was a show that moved like that. We had like big production numbers in that show. So that was, and just getting to be wheelchaired around for most of the show is a perk that you can never pass up in terms of any role. Because you don't need to know blocking at that point. Someone else does.
FDR is in your future in Annie.
I mean, listen, the sun will always come out tomorrow.
So Dirty Rotten Scoundrels is done at the end of March, and now we get ready in May for these first Minty Awards. And I remember actually specifically going to Farrell to rehearse with the medley. And do you have any memories of rehearsing for the Minties and then that first ceremony?
Yeah, rehearsing it, we put together like a good little medley. Again, like we kind of, it was all uncharted territory at that point, because there was no precedent for what had been done in other like Minty medleys. So Monty was putting together something that could showcase, and the great thing about Monty is that it's always about the cast, and it's always about obviously like all the kids in the show having fun, and a medley that would showcase like everyone who was involved in the show, not just like, okay, so X, Y, and Z, that they have the big numbers, they're nominated for these things, like let's make sure we showcase them. Like no, we're going to do something that showcases everyone, and we're going to put together something that everyone can look back on and say, I was there, I was doing this. And then just that first ceremony of just walking in and just thinking like, what's going to happen tonight? Like this is, I don't think I've ever been to an award ceremony to that point, like in my life for anything. So and just like the angst, not the angst, but the anxiety of like, geez, like what am I gonna do if they call my name? Like what am I gonna do? And then my just favorite minor memory was that I think Great Big Stuff won Outstanding Production Number, and Haley Bishop, wonderful girl, goes up and she says a whole spiel off the top of her head, like, because none of us had anything ready to go for this kind of stuff, and she gets off stage and someone, not me, but someone says to her like, it was James's number. You didn't say anything, like you didn't mention him at all. And she was like, I remember her being like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I didn't even realize it at the time. Because again, we're all just so excited. And I just remember the roar of the music hall, like when anything happened for any school, like this, the atmosphere of excitement that was present in that room was just something that obviously just stands out.
And it was that excitement that led there to be a second Minty that goes back and forth and so on. Because if there wasn't that excitement, if there was, too much of a competitive element, it would have ended right there. But it was, you guys just having the love for each other and the love for theater that went on. So Dirty Round Scoundrels, very successful. That first Minties, Ali Triglianos won for Outstanding Featured Actress. Like you said, great big stuff. One for production number. At the time, we actually had a Best Costumes award, which we eventually merged Best Costumes and Outstanding Costumes and Sets into Artistic Design for the second year.
There you go.
And then Outstanding, won the first St. Genesius Award for Outstanding Musical, and you took home the very first Outstanding Leading Actor Award. What do you remember about that moment?
I mean, I was coming from a point of like just thinking to myself, obviously like James Boland and I were both like co-leads of that show, and the two characters, obviously the show doesn't exist without either of them. And I guess I had the thought in my head of just like, well, I'm like the junior here. Like, I mean, he's in more of the show, I think, like, trying to parse it out in my head. Like genuinely, like the furthest thing from my mind was hearing my name called, especially since back then, I don't think I had seen any of the other shows. Obviously Freddie was going to beat the kid from Bye Bye Birdie, but generally, like when they said my name, like I was just like overwhelmed. And like the first thing that happened when they called my name was that like Boland just grabbed me and was like, you got to get up there, like go. And that was just like so awesome of just that walk up. I remember just my hand to my mouth, like, oh my, like I have to say something now. And yeah, that was just, again, it was amazing. Yeah, just awesome emotions overcoming me at that point.
Well, we actually have a little clip that will show in a few moments of that first acceptance speech of yours. But now we go into your senior year. And actually that summer, though, I believe we did a little show together at the Snug Music Hall.
At the very same stage.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. But now going into your senior year, you said 2 shows wasn't good enough. My junior year, let's go for the trifecta.
Absolutely.
So what was the first show up that year?
So the first show up that year, and the first show by a span of about 4 days, was St. John Villa's Into the Woods, which I think took place either the last weekend of October into the first week of November, or the first week of November, and then the following week was St. Joseph Hill Academy's Annie. So literally like coming through Tech Week performances, right back into a Tech Week, into the performances. And I will say it would have been a 4 for 4 if Notre Dame had allowed guys that year, because no matter what Mr. Monteleone wanted, I would have 100% been out there for Seussical. Like I said, that was the first show I ever did. So that was on my radar. But I don't think if it would have been back to back to back, that might have been a little too much.
If there was one person that would have made it work, though, I think it would have been you.
Well, it would have been me or Nick Garrity was like, in like grade school thinking to himself, wow, if he could do 3, then, I could do like 9 in 1 year. So gotta throw it in there.
So Into the Woods, what a beautiful show at Villa, real great superstar of leads that you guys had. And the Baker, obviously playing off of Janine as the Baker's wife. And so tell us about that experience, and then we'll move on to the second.
let's see. So you describe it as playing off of each other. I would describe it as Janine carrying me through yet another show where she had to play opposite me. After watching her conversation from a couple weeks back, I had to comment saying it's amazing she was able to win those 2 Minty Awards given the co-actor she was working with. But like you said, just like such an amazing talent to work with. Janine is absolutely a phenomenal actress and performer. And when you're matched up with someone like that, you can't help but have to raise yourself up to try to meet and try to match that kind of performance. And even then, besides Janine, you had obviously Joe O'Malley as the mysterious man narrator, Maria Elena Rumayor as the witch. You had just everybody that, again, these are like my best friends I'm talking about now. So obviously going from doing Bye Bye Birdie into doing Into the Woods with them, it was just such a fun experience. And for me personally, probably the most serious kind of show that I had been in to that point, coming off of doing, a bunch of slapstick musical comedies into what is, having done Sondheim since and knowing more about him since, it just was really challenging stuff, like learning, I'm going to blank on what it's called now, but Your Fault, just learning that just cacophony of a song and still knowing it, because once you know it, you never lose it. But it just, it was just challenging but rewarding in doing that kind of show.
I would say definitely more difficult than Babes in Arms.
Oh, yeah.
But see you guys take that difficult, piece of material and excel at it. It shows, the talent level that was in that cast. So now Into the Woods closes. You run up the block, up
Yep.
the hill to St. Joseph Hill.
Over the river and through the woods to the other side of the hill.
And you are playing Rooster in their production of Annie.
Yes. That was again, going, dipping my toe into the more serious waters of doing a show like Into the Woods, and then immediately saying, now we got to go back to what we're used to, and just playing Rooster Hannigan, which is just, that was such a fun role to do with Victoria Volpe as Miss Hannigan, and Summer Moran, who I believe would go on to win that year for Outstanding Featured Actress for Lily St. Regis. Yeah. Listen, all the people that are playing the roles with me, there's a common thread here.
You must have something working for you.
The common thread is that they are overcoming challenges put in front of them. But that was such a fun show. I don't think I'd ever had seen Annie to that point. But just doing it and working with the people over at St. Joseph Hill, obviously Donna and Loretta, who that was my first foray into really getting introduced to them, and obviously like just loved working with them in terms of that show. And again, if theater wasn't something to love and enjoy on a high school level, I would not have been doing it back-to-back weekends. So
your friend, who is Daddy Warbucks, Frank West, tells a story about that show that is not true. So I just want to put it out. Do you know the story I'm talking about?
There's so many stories that have come out of that show. So if there's a brief synopsis, let's see if it jogs the memory.
He says that he flubbed a line saying, you're Annie Bennett, instead of saying you're not Annie Mudge, and somebody from the audience, cringed, realizing that he blamed me for calling him out from the audience for messing up that line. But I want to put on the record, that was not me.
No, I've never heard it be that was from your from coming from you in that way. I remember that there was the flub of just saying, like, I think it was that your parents are Ralph and Shirley Mudge or whatever it is, or he says they are, he says they aren't, and he says the opposite of what was supposed to be said. And I'm blanking on what her name was, but the girl who played Annie just hit great stride. And I've come to love, like, when things happen on stage and you fix them in a way that just makes it work, or at least in a way that makes it, you manage to salvage a moment where she just goes, wait, I thought you said they weren't Ralph and Shirley Mudge or whatever. And he just goes, you're right, Annie, I apologize, or whatever he said. But you just got to make it work. And that's just what that was. Again, I had not heard to that you were involved in that, but I can't speak to that.
He alleged that it was me, and I'm just putting on the record that it was not. But Robin Rodolfo, who was
yes, Robin, that's right.
Was Annie, would go on actually to win a Minty in Hello Dolly a few years later.
There we go.
Yeah. So now you're done with the fall shows, and now your senior show comes at Farrell, and it's actually another Sondheim, but one that could be not any more different than the first.
Yes. A funny thing happened on the way to the forum, a show that will follow me forever in terms of my involvement in the Minties, and that I think almost every time I've gone up since then, you have just that opening trumpet of the bum bum bum. But yeah, that was you want to talk about like stepping from a perspective of, okay, I was, a leading actor in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. But you have a leading actor in that show that has obviously, James Brolin being the other co-leading actor, and you have like a leading lady in terms of like Angela's role. You have a lot of people that are kind of on the same level, and then stepping into Pseudolus, which is just like the way I've described it is that like Pseudolus is the show in the sense that it runs through him, and you want to talk about just a different animal entirely of just doing that kind of the difference in material. But again, such a fun show, fun people to be around in terms of like, obviously like three of my best friends being the other people from Everybody Ought to Have a Maid. And then just kind of stepping in. And I think I've talked about this in different moments, but you had a lot of seniors that had graduated in 2011 that were involved for like 2 years, 3 years, all 4 years of Farrell players. And when you look at the seniors and even the juniors, when we were doing Forum, you had a lot of guys and even the girls who it was, this was their first time like in a big musical. This is their first time being a Farrell player. And whether I should have done this or not, I took it very much on my shoulders of just like, there's a lot on me in terms of this, like, because I was the only guy who had been there for the 4 years. And that's, again, why that show is obviously so near and dear to me, is that the level that everyone rose to despite that, and the show we were able to put on despite losing so many people the year prior. You can ask anybody if they want to go back and reference my senior speech. It was, let's just say, waterworks were very, very heavy from people that, were me. So just as a thank you to all of them for helping my last show be just the experience that it was.
And it was a great show, and there was a great medley put on that year at the Minties, our first at the St. George Theater. So do you recall stepping foot on that stage? And then at night, I mean, the year before Snug Harbor, we had 500 people. Now at the St. George, we were playing to over 700 people. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I'm having been on the St. George stage like several times since then. I don't think I had ever, I know I had been there to see things before, but I think that was literally the first time ever setting foot on the stage. And it's anyone who hasn't worked on a professional stage and like that's the first one they step onto will tell you like it is just a different perspective. You're not looking to the back of the auditorium, you're looking up into all the seats all the way back, and it's daunting. But that rehearsal, and everyone's talked about like the Minty Day rehearsal that's now become like at the St. George, was just like walking out there and like this, we're gonna do this here, like we're gonna do this on this. And like having the curtain available, which was awesome to do. Like again, that's the thing we weren't able to do at the high school level in the auditorium. But having the curtain rise up for them doing the tragedy aspect and being able to say like, no, tomorrow, and like lower the curtain, them all going, oh, and being able to do that bit was awesome. But I remember from the rehearsal aspect, I had come up with the little tidbit I threw into the medley. I don't know if I came up with it then. I probably ran it by Monty, but Alana Malloy was playing Domina in our performance of Forum, and she was also Fantine in St. Peter's Les Mis, which I think was like 2 to 3 weeks prior to the actual ceremony. So when we did the Nothing But Grim, Nothing But Greek, and I changed the rhyme to she played Fantine, right? Back a few weeks. I did that at the rehearsal, and I remember Rebecca Shanameo just like shouting out from backstage, "That's funny, keep it." and we kept it, and we did it that night. And I remember like not to spoilers, I have watched the Minty performances back many times to this point, but hearing the crowd and hearing what I could only imagine is the St. Peter's kids realizing what I said, and then giving a little cheer to be like, "Oh my God, he said the Peter Show," which again was just so funny and just awesome to do.
So let's go back to 2012 and 2011, watch a little bit of that forum performance, and then a bit of that first acceptance speech from 2011, balloon arch included. Let's take a look.
And we are here tonight to worship the gods of comedy and tragedy. Tonight, I am pleased to announce a comedy. We shall employ every device we know in our desire to divert you. Something familiar, something peculiar, something for everyone, a comedy tonight. Something appealing, something appalling, something for everyone, a comedy tonight. Nothing with kings, nothing with crowns, bring on the lumpers, liars and clowns. Whole situations to complication, nothing potentious or polite. Tragedy tomorrow, comedy. Tragedy tomorrow. Comedy tonight. Tumbler, 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 no royal curse, no chosen horse, and the happy ending of course. It's madness, it's time it all turns out alright. Tragedy tomorrow. Stop! No time! Comedy! 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 Tonight! 1, 2, 3.
James McKeon.
Congratulations to James McKeon.
I'm a firm believer in that anything that a lead actor does cannot be possible without the cast behind him. No one can be as good as their cast. And the first people I want to thank for this just tremendous honor would be the rest of my cast in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. There could be no show like Boland, Angela, Smiles, Cobb, Phil, everyone, Allie. Just without you guys, this would mean nothing without the rest of you guys. That's really an honest. I want to thank all the friends I've made through theater, through every show I've been, and all the friends I've made. It's really some of the best times of my life. I want to thank, again, just my whole family. My mom, my dad, my 2 brothers, who, through everything, they always just support me so well. It's just an honor to know each and every one of you, and just thanks to all of you as well for coming out here tonight and supporting the audience.
Well, you were certainly correct in noting the height and volume of your hair back 10 years ago. Mine had a lot more and a lot of more black to it as well. So I feel you in that department. But is there another memory that stands out for you outside of what we just watched?
Yes. So coming back in 2013, which other people have mentioned, the 2013 ceremony was otherworldly in terms of the productions and the shows that went on that year. But just like building off of what I had said earlier, like leaving Farrell in the hands of the people that, came after me. And then obviously I saw Drowsy Chaperone. I wasn't able to see 42nd Street with all the people I had worked with at Villa. I was at NYU at the time, and as part of the curriculum, you had to tech one of their student-run productions, and that week was my student-run production. So I wasn't able to catch their performance, but just being blown away by what I saw from the curtain bit with the dancing, and just like walking away from the Minty Awards saying to myself, like, sheesh, I really missed out on seeing 42nd Street at Villa. And then just the overwhelming sense of just pride in watching all the people that, were first timers, second timers in Forum now being those leading characters and just owning and nailing and making me laugh and cry of them, just watching them do Drowsy Chaperone. It's just like not that I put really anything into it. I saw it. I think I was there for the audition, but it was so great. And I've told them that so many times. Is just my favorite thing is when I went back and saw it at Farrell and then seeing it again, just, and not just the fact that they won, which was, great, but just to see just them have so much fun and just nail that on that stage. And even like Kieran Gralick saying, just the one last time, like, will you indulge me? It's like, yes, 1,000 times over, I will indulge this.
And it's such a character-driven show. And, the heavens smiled down upon Monty to literally cast that show perfectly. Mm-hmm. Everybody just was their characters. And it was a fantastic show. And ceremony, like I've said many times, that ceremony also put the idea in my head of, saving the great, get up and cheer and party performance for the end. Jess Menino doing Leader of the Pack. Mm-hmm. At that ceremony as well. So as you mentioned, you began your collegiate career at NYU, thinking that you were going to continue on your theatrical path.
Yes. So yes, I auditioned for NYU's Tisch program. Surprising to me, I was accepted into NYU's Tisch program, and I spent my first year at Playwrights Horizon Studio there. I had a great experience. Loved it there. It was one of those things where, and I've said this to kids asking about like college advice. College in general is very expensive nowadays. It's no secret, and getting into the arts, not even on a college level, it is an inherent risk in and of itself, because it's a very subjective, very not certain path. And so my path took me in a different direction because you're spending how much money you're spending on theater school. So in terms of a career path, I kind of shifted gears a little bit and I pursued other avenues from college and onward, but still maintaining that, the things I had learned not only from school, but just, I've never stopped doing shows. So, but yes, so changing the gears a little bit, but keeping on the theatrical
your career path has worked out very well for you, because you went to St. John's. Mm-hmm. And what was your major? Is there a pre-law major at St. John's?
So there is a pre-law major. That is not the thing that I did. I transferred into St. John's initially as an English major, and then I transitioned over into an adolescent education major because my mother is a Catholic school teacher. My brother's a public school teacher out in Brooklyn. Teaching has always been something that I've loved to do. So I became a adolescent education major, wound up double majoring in English anyway. And then I got my degree, not my dual bachelor's, but my double major in those two areas. And then
Albert Peterson was still with you then at that point in your career. Mm-hmm. He was in English. Was he not an English teacher? Isn't that the whole story?
Oh yeah, listen, Albert Peterson. One day I'm going to end up as Albert Peterson. It's almost an inevitability at this point. But I have other characters I have to flip through to get to that point. I'm kind of still in my Warner Huntington pit at this point. I think that's Warner's last name in Legally Blonde. That was more recent. I should know that.
Well, we'll get to the other shows you've done, but I think we will run out of time because there's just way too many. But following you in Legally Blonde's footsteps, you did go to law school, very successful career at New York Law School. Mm-hmm. And you took and passed the New York bar exam this past year in COVID. So to do all of that is a feat in and of itself, and with COVID on top of that. So congratulations to you. Can we mention where you are working these days?
Yes, I work currently at the Richmond County District Attorney's Office as an assistant district attorney in the office in our criminal court bureau. So still maintaining, and you know this as well as someone who works in the legal profession, a lot of the legal profession, and especially in an advocacy type setting, as opposed to, drafting and litigation and motion practice, advocacy is being on your feet and advocacy is performing. So the skills that I learned and honed on the high school stages and the community theater aspect, they are 100% still things that when you're standing up in front of a judge and you have to stand and deliver and perform, there are things that, can come in handy in almost any aspect of when you need to present yourself. And that's a lot of what learning to be on a high school stage specifically, was learning how to be on a stage and how to present yourself, not on a one-on-one setting, but to a grander audience, which is just what this is.
And you took the next question right from me, because all our previous guests have gone on to a career or pursued a career in the arts, sticking with theater on stage or behind the scenes. And you're really our first guest, to do a different career path. But again, it's so important to show our current high school students that you don't need to. Theater is helpful in anything that you do, the lessons that you learn on the stage. And so, like you just said, learning how to advocate for your client, whether it be the state in your role or an individual defendant or plaintiff, and having to be quick on your feet, make the arguments to the judge, be able to sell the judge on your belief, and persuade him or her to rule for you. I think it is very important. And like you said, you've learned a lot through the years being on the stage with that as well. So, like I mentioned, too many credits to list in the brief time that we have.
Yes.
What about, you've done so many shows over the last 10 years in so many community groups on the island. What were some of your favorites?
Let's see. So yeah, there's way too many to parse through. But I was just listening to driving back from somewhere this morning. We were listening to Godspell, which I did in fall 2013 within the Wings over at the late VMH venue. But that was such a fun show to do in that space. Being able to find my way back to the St. George Theater in a actual community theater setting, doing Mamma Mia within the Wings back in 2019 was just so awesome. And then to perform for the kids show we did in the Christmas Fed, which was also just another little fun thing. But no, I think just tapping into all the different, the roles are one thing, but being able to work with the people in the Wings I've mentioned. I've been at Seaview. I've been with Hemlock for a little bit, Ghostlight with some of my friends. There's no shortage of people that I've loved working with across, all the different roles and shows and productions that I've been involved in. Again, while my career path may have taken me in a different direction, theater is something that I don't ever want to be not a part of my life. So, yeah.
And like you said, so many companies, so many shows, and doing shows with your friends and the people that you love always makes it a better show at the end result. I also, one of my favorite moments, is your crab walk. I will say that's one of my favorite memories.
Listen, don't crab walk, crab run to get your tickets to Little Mermaid, which I think was an advertisement we used for that.
So looking back now, 10 years of memories with the Minties, like I mentioned at the beginning, you've been involved, you've been a part, I think, of almost every ceremony, either present or presenting, introducing an aspect. Our cabarets, I've asked you to take on the role of emceeing those for the last few years, which you've done a great job at the galas. Most recently, when we honored Monty, you helped with that medley as well. What has the Minties meant to you over these last 10 years?
I mean, it's just something that spirit of that first time at Snug Harbor, and the thing we mentioned, like that excitement in that room for each other from the different schools, is something that I never want to see go away. And I want kids to see and know that, it's been 10 years, but it's something that I'm more than willing, and something that I want to come back and experience that kind of shared excitement again. So in any way that I can be involved is a way that I want to be involved, because I want them to have that same memory, to be like, when we were all there together at the gala, we were all there together, doing the cabarets with each other. Like, it was so much fun to share in that theater space that, in 20 years time, someone else will have been here for like the 10-year span or whatnot. And just to kind of give that example of he's still coming around. There's got to be a reason.
And what advice, I mean, you've spoken, you really have taken on even a mentoring role with some of these kids in high schools that you've worked with at the Minties and at the cabarets and such. What advice would you give to them that are looking to, maybe they don't know what they want to pursue after high school, or they're afraid of doing something other than theater? And what advice would you give to yourself looking back 10 years ago? And it's not get a haircut.
No, I've said many times, if I got a haircut, I would have been insufferable. So that's never advice that I would ever give to myself. So to the students that are now kind of looking towards their future and looking towards what they would want to do on a collegiate level, like I mentioned before, theater is something that is a big commitment, and it's a commitment that, you know, you can commit to other career paths and other professions, and there's kind of a floor you can end up at in terms of that commitment. Theater has a very low floor. It's very possible. It's something that you have to think about. And when you think about that, and when you come back to the answer that, no, I'm willing to take that risk, and it's something that I'm willing to do, that's when you know that theater is something that is special to you. When you look at that in the face, I think they say courage is not having no fear, but overcoming fear. That is what I would say. Take a look at what you want to do, and always remember that, you know, nothing is fatal. No decisions are final. You know, there's always time to reflect and time to move forward. I mean, I changed my mind so many times in college, and I like to think it's worked out. So don't be afraid to make that commitment, and know that you're going to find yourself on the right path. There's so many people out here in so many different walks of your individual high schools, the Minty alumni people, that there are so many people that are there to help you. If you falter at all, you will be caught and you will be helped. So always keep that in mind. And I would say many of the same things to myself, except I would just also say, have a little more fun, relax a little bit. Everything's going to be all right.
And everything has turned out right, and more than all right for you. And I look very forward to the next time that we are in a show together, and that either playing or conducting, or maybe on stage with you. Who knows at this point? But
it's been a while since we've been on stage together, I will say.
It has. I think it was probably the St. John staged reading of 12 Angry Men.
That's right. Totally. See, again, the credits you kind of that slipped through your mind. Yeah, that's true. The stage reading, that was awesome. That was a lot of fun.
I think that was probably the last time. But I look forward to your involvement in our 10th anniversary show, and I know it will be special. And I want to thank you for joining us tonight, and thank your mother for allowing us to take you from her on Mother's Day. And a very happy Mother's Day to everybody that is watching. Until next time, when we have an all-new guest next Sunday, thank you for watching. And as always, don't forget, meet me at the Minties on August 8th. Good night, everybody.